This week, the feds make it official. Rankin County Sheriff and his department are at the center of a civil rights investigation. We'll hear from top justice officials about what exactly they are looking for. Also, state officials say it's time for the city of Jackson to hand over the deed to Smith Will Stadium, but the mayor is calling a foul ball. We'll hear from him this morning. And that transportation officials prepare to drop tens of millions of dollars into road and bridge repairs statewide. That's all ahead this Sunday on Mississippi Insight. I'm Byron Brown. Thanks for joining us for this September 22nd edition of Insight. For many years now, Rankin County Sheriff's Department has faced accusations of unfair, unjust, and belligerent treatment of people of color. The so-called Goon Squad incident of 2023 brought those allegations into the spotlight. 5 former deputies and a former Richland police officer face long prison sentences for the torture of 2 black men during a raid on a home in Braxton. But their convictions are not the end of the story. Thursday, officials with the U.S. Justice Department and the FBI briefed reporters on their probe of the Sheriff's Department. They want to know whether Goon Squad activities were the exception to the rule in Sheriff Brian Bailey's office or standard operating procedure. Here's U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Mississippi, Todd G., and Kristen Clark, U.S. Assistant Attorney General for DOJ's Civil Rights Division.
Based on an extensive review of publicly available information as well as information provided to us, we have substantial grounds to open this investigation now. The investigation will focus on 3 main areas. First, whether the Sheriff's Department engages in a pattern or practice of using excessive force. Second, whether the department engages in a pattern or practice of making unlawful stops, searches, and arrests. And third, whether the department engages in racially discriminatory policing practices. We did not open this investigation based on a single incident or event, and we will not confine the investigation to a specific unit within the department. But of course, we cannot speak about Rankin County without mentioning the horrific violence that 5 former deputies inflicted on 2 black men, Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker, in January of 2023. Although Mr. Jenkins and Mr. Parker survived the attack, the deputies brutally beat, tortured, and taunted them with racial slurs. One deputy shot Mr. Jenkins in the mouth while attempting a mock execution. The deputies who committed these heinous acts called themselves the Goon Squad. They have since been convicted and sentenced to federal prison, including the lead defendant, who was sentenced to 40 years. Since the Goon Squad's sickening acts came to light, we have received reports of other instances indicating that this conduct was far too common. Instances where Rankin deputies overused tasers, entered homes unlawfully, bandied about shocking racial slurs, and deployed dangerous, cruel tactics to assault people in their custody. The evidence we received suggests that deputies fail to accurately report or document the force they use, and that the department neither supervises deputies adequately nor holds them accountable. Public reports indicate that deputies allegedly plant evidence, coerce confessions, and have tried to hide evidence of their wrongdoing, particularly of the violence they have visited on the people of Rankin County. Allegations like these have persisted for years, which suggest widespread Sheriff's Department failures to adequately train and supervise deputies, uncover wrongdoing when it occurs, and hold deputies accountable for violations of law or policy. Put simply, the concerns about the Rankin County Sheriff's Department did not end with the demise of the Goon Squad. There is no question that individual officers must be held accountable when they violate the law. The investigation we announced today, however, will use all the tools at our disposal to ensure that the people of Rankin County have effective, constitutional, fair, non-discriminatory policing. The Justice Department Civil Rights Division and the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Mississippi will conduct this investigation jointly. This is a civil investigation, and it is entirely separate from any federal criminal investigation of Rankin deputies. We have just briefed Sheriff Brian Bailey and representatives of the county, and we're pleased that they have pledged their support and cooperation. The investigation will be thorough and objective. We will follow the facts and the law where they lead, and we hope that community members throughout Rankin County will trust us with their stories, their experiences, and views about public safety. We also will meet with the Sheriff Department's leadership and will hear directly from deputies about the challenges they face. If there is reasonable cause to believe the county and the department engage in a pattern or practice of constitutional or statutory violations, we will issue a public report of our conclusions. We will then cooperate with the county and the Sheriff's Department to reach an agreement on remedies. If we can't reach an agreement, the Justice Department may bring a civil lawsuit seeking to stop the violations. We look forward to working with the Rankin County Sheriff's Department and Rankin County toward the shared goals of ensuring constitutional policing and promoting greater trust and cooperation between law enforcement officers and the communities they serve.
In January of last year, 5 white deputies for the Rankin County, Mississippi Sheriff's Department, some of whom were part of a unit that described itself as the Goon Squad, entered a home without a warrant and then handcuffed, kicked, tased, and sexually assaulted 2 African-American men, Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker, while taunting them with racial slurs. They told the victims, who both resided in Rankin County, to go back to Jackson or to their side of the Pearl River, areas with a higher concentration of African-American residents. A deputy eventually shot one of the victims in the mouth during a mock execution, and then the group tried to frame them both for crimes they did not commit. The Department of Justice obtained criminal convictions of those 5 deputies, along with another local officer who joined in the assault, and they were sentenced to terms in prison ranging from 10 to 40 years. But for several reasons, this may not simply be written off as an isolated incident in Rankin County. First, 3 of those same deputies pleaded guilty to participating in another brutal attack just a month earlier in December 2022, when they punched, kicked, and tased a white victim and then fired a gun near him to try to scare him. Second, publicly reported text communications between the members of the Goon Squad, including officers who were not present for the January 2023 assault, indicate that deputies routinely discussed extreme, unnecessary uses of force and other ways to dehumanize residents of Rankin County. For example, deputies shared a video of an officer defecating in the home of a Rankin County resident. Third, brave residents of Rankin County have come forward to report abuse by members of the Rankin County Sheriff's Office. Journalists have compiled harrowing accounts of beatings, taser use, and other extreme uses of force. In a listening session my office held in Rankin County, I heard firsthand accounts of alleged abuse. The accounts came from men and women, old and young alike. Together, this information indicates that there may be a pattern or practice of civil rights violations by the Rankin County Sheriff's Department and Rankin County. The investigation we announced today will examine those alleged pattern or practices in great detail. And if the Department of Justice's investigation determines that such a pattern or practice of discrimination has occurred, we will seek remedies that bring real change to all the residents of Rankin County. I want to make clear that there are good law enforcement officers in Rankin County and throughout Mississippi that go to work every day and do the right thing. They answer the call when people are in need, and they treat those they encounter fairly. But the information we have learned to date about the conduct of some members of the Rankin County Sheriff's Office calls back to some of the worst periods of Mississippi's history. This year is the 60th anniversary of the Mississippi burning murders of 3 civil rights workers that this office prosecuted. There, too, law enforcement played a role in the violence. We all want to hope that Mississippi and our nation have moved past a time when such crimes can occur. But the allegations involving the Goon Squad and others in Rankin County echo back to 1964 in ways that we must confront. Simply put, the events in Rankin County appear to be a continuation of the violence and intimidation that for too long has defined how many African Americans experience the justice system in Mississippi. We do not have to accept the old hatreds and abuse of the past. And we do not have to accept the false claim that safety comes at the price of illegal force and abuse of power. In Mississippi and throughout the nation, we have learned over and over that real change in civil rights sometimes requires us to dig up the past, tell painful facts, and offer new ways of doing things. We intend for this investigation to do that same work in Rankin County.
Monitor 12 News for developments in the DOJ's Rankin County investigation. Straight ahead, fighting words from Jackson's mayor over Smith-Will Stadium. Mississippi Insight returns in a moment. Leaders in Jackson say they are not going to hand over the deed for Smith-Will Stadium to the state without a fight. Attorney General Lynn Fitch sent a letter to the city on September 13th. It says the AG's office is bound by legislation from the 2024 session to, quote, enforce the reverter language in the 1944 deed, conveying the title from the state to the city. Fitch claimed that the terms of the deed have been breached.
I will say, only because it was characterized in this way from a media posting, that the AG does not have the authority to order the transfer of Smith-Will Stadium. And we will certainly defend our interest. While I won't get into what our defenses are, I will say that I believe that we have a case, right? What I will say is this, and give a little bit of history. Before I was mayor, my father's administration worked diligently. In fact, the day my father died, he had a meeting scheduled with Costco. In fact, it was actually Jackson who had engaged Costco leadership first, and that was the place that they wanted to go. And unfortunately, we met opposition from state leadership. I will share, I've never said this publicly. We were talking to some of the developers who ultimately are now developing Topgolf in Madison County. Before, they had an interest in developing on some of the property right there near Smith-Will Stadium. And the reason that they didn't is because state leadership opposed it. And so our residents of Jackson are often led to believe that nobody wants to invest in Jackson, when the reality is that's not true. And what is a little disheartening is when I see that every time state leadership comes to me, our administration has been very supportive of their ideas to build a walking trail in the area. There's an idea and there's a goal of creating a bridge that crosses over Lakeland Drive that will say LaFleur's Bluff, right? To connect the museums, and we've agreed to all of that. We've been a willing partner. And so when I see investment taking place in North Mississippi and their big press conferences, or South Mississippi and the states talking about how we're moving forward, the only thing that I would say is ask the question, why is Jackson not deserving? What sets us apart? Instead of suggesting things that people might assume that I would suggest, I'm just going to pose the question. Why is Jackson not why are we not worthy of that partnership, that engagement? And if there's an interest or a desire to do something with Smithville, maybe it would be a better course of action instead of sneaking a takeover of Smithville in a bill where you don't call it out by name, you call it out by its legal description. Maybe it would be a path of least resistance if you just came to the table and said, well, we have some desires too, and we think that we can do some things that will benefit Smithville Stadium, benefit the residents of Jackson, benefit the state of Mississippi. That's the way business is done. That's the way and that it should go. That's the way that it goes in other parts of the state. And so when I see that investment in other parts, I don't take the position that I'm angry with it, right? I'm happy for Mississippians. I'm happy that other parts of the state are being invested in. I merely just suggest that the residents of Jackson are worthy of that too. And so that's what I would ask that you do. Ask them, why is this the process? All right.
Just follow up. Have they given you any idea of how the contract has been breached?
No, they were.
Does that have to do with the cigar shop? Or?
I will not. One, I won't make their case for them, right? And I won't speculate on what they believe to be that breach. I will say that from our standpoint, and them signaling that they would, make this effort, we've already begun the process of looking into this and how we will defend the interest of Jackson. But again, it shouldn't be a defense, right? The object of our debate, the object of our discussion shouldn't be victory over one another. It should be progress. And so we want progress. We want an opportunity to partner with those. I sometimes have companies. I sometimes go out of the country to make connections with people who are willing to invest, and sometimes that isn't being brought to us, right? Those conversations aren't being introduced to us, so we have to bring ourselves to the conversation because unfortunately we don't enjoy the privilege of that relationship. And so it's not because we don't want it. It's not because we're not willing on our side. It's not because we haven't agreed to things on our side. And so why are the residents of Jackson undeserving?
The city has until September 30th to transfer the deed to the state or face legal action. We reached out to General Fitch's office to discuss her initiative. We're back in a moment. Road and bridge safety has long been a concern in Mississippi and other states. It was 2017 when federal inspectors discovered severe problems on some city and county road and bridges. Then Governor Phil Bryant declared the findings an emergency, and the legislature went into special session. They developed an emergency road and bridges relief fund that has poured hundreds of millions of dollars into repairs across the state. 12 News' Cameron Smith talked with the executive director of the Mississippi Department of Transportation. Brad White says the state of emergency has passed, but the work is far from over. 12 News' Cameron Smith spoke with MDOT's executive director, Brad White, who says that special session birthed the emergency road and bridge relief fund that exists today.
At the time, the legislature was called into a special session to come up with a way to address that, because if the state did not take steps to address it, our federal funds would become in jeopardy.
MDOT will reward the next round of emergency road and bridge repair funds next month.
About $570 million has been invested in that fund over the last several years. And with that money, we have set out to administer programs around the state to help local governments repair or either replace bridges.
$30 million was approved this session and will go towards projects yet to be selected. Since 2018, the emergency funds have repaired or replaced 350 bridges and some roadways all over the state, making it easier for those using the roads and bridges in Mississippi. This bridge is on Pine Haven Drive in Clinton. It was selected in the 2023 round of funds, and MDOT says it will be repaired by the city soon. White likes that the program is a data-driven process, and the size of the county or city doesn't matter when applying for the funds.
It's all equal ground for all the counties and cities that want to apply and try to seek funds for the needs that they have in their county.
This bridge on Colonial Circle was recently repaired in Jackson after being selected in the round of 2022 funds.
It's based on criteria like the length of the detour, how much truck traffic is on the roadway, how much regular traffic is on the roadway, the availability of emergency vehicles, school bus traffic. And so all of these things go into a database that is scored, where each project is scored, and then a list is presented back to the commission that says these are the projects that have ranked the highest in order to receive the funds. If you look at our numbers, we're no longer as a state in a position to where we feel that we're in a state of emergency.
Projects for the next round will be selected in the October Transportation Commission meetings. Reporting in Jackson, Cameron Smith, 12 News.
We'll be back next weekend with more of the political and current affairs coverage that you demand. I'm Byron Brown from all of us here at 12 News. Make it a great weekend.